Quiver Dance boosts the user's speed, special defense, and special attack by one stage. Many consider it the best setup move in the game. The developers were clearly aware it was a really good move, as only 9 fully evolved Pokemon get Quiver Dance in Scarlet and Violet, or 12 if you count each Oricorio form as a different Pokemon, which I will. I'll be ranking all 12 from worst to best, but first let's make sure the criteria is clear. First of all of these Quiver Dance users will be ranked based on their performance in the Scarlet and Violet Overused tier, the main format for competitive singles. Not only is it my area of expertise, but setup moves like Quiver Dance are typically a lot more threatening in singles, so we'll get to see all these Pokemon at their maximum potential. Secondly, these Pokemon will be ranked based on their best set that uses Quiver Dance. Ribombee is considered a solid lead Pokemon in Overused, but that's because it's used as a Sticky Web lead, not as a Quiver Dance sweeper. Ribombee won't get credit for being a good Sticky Web setter, nor will Masquerain. We're judging these Pokemon by how effective they are at sweeping with Quiver Dance. Third, I'll be judging each Pokemon by their individual performance. I built unique teams for each of the Pokemon on this list, designed to bring out the strengths in each of these Quiver Dance sweepers, but obviously I didn't have time to extensively test and optimize 12 teams. Some are bound to be better than others, so I won't judge the Quiver Dance sweeper by the overall performance of the team. Also, I'll explain the relevant sets in the video, but if you want to see the exact teams I'm using in the background footage, they're all linked in the description. Alright, now let's get into it. As I tested the Pokemon on this list, I was shocked by how well and how poorly some of them did, so make sure you stick around till the end. I think some of the rankings will surprise you as well. Without further ado, number 12, the worst fully evolved Pokemon with Quiver Dance is Oricorio Pau. Each form of Oricorio is a flying type with a secondary typing. The secondary typing for this form is Psychic. Psychic is one of the worst defensive and offensive types in the game. Its main strength is access to unique and powerful moves like Psyshock, Stored Power, Future Sight, and Psychic Noise, but Oricorio Pau doesn't have any of that. Revelation Dance is the only psychic attack it has. On top of Psychic just not being a very good type, it's particularly bad when paired with Flying, as both Flying and Psychic are resisted by Steel, the best and most common defensive type in the game. The stats of all Oricorio forms are the same, and they're all quite disappointing. They have a mediocre base 93 speed and base 98 special attack, but their bulk is worse, with base 75 HP and 70 in both defenses. Oricorio is as frail as Weavile, without the speed or power to back it up. Fortunately, Oricorio does have a trick up its sleeve. In addition to Quiver Dance, of course, Oricorio's signature move Revelation Dance interacts in a unique way with Terra. This 90 base power special normal move changes type to match the primary type of the user. That makes it Psychic type for Oricorio Pau, but if any form of Oricorio uses Terra, Revelation Dance becomes that type. So, Oricorio can go from having a Psychic-type Revelation Dance to suddenly using Terra Fighting and destroying a Kingambit with a Fighting-type Revelation Dance. This saves a move slot since you don't have to run Terra Blast, but it's also a bit limiting since Oricorio can't effectively use defensive Terra types very well. Many Oricorio forms would appreciate using Terra Steel or Poison to avoid Toxic, but Steel and Poison are pretty terrible as an offensive type, so you wouldn't want your Revelation Dance to turn into them. Still, this benefit of saving a move slot and effectively having a much stronger version of Terra Blast has led to several forms of Oricorio being banned in many lower tiers. These strengths will be worth remembering when we get to other Oricorio forms, but sadly it's not enough to help the Pau form get out of the last place on this list. I put this Oricorio on a Rain team. Since the Psychic-type Revelation Dance isn't nearly as useful as the other types of Revelation Dance, I wanted to take advantage of the Flying Stab and give it the ability to reliably use Hurricane. I went with a defensive leftover set so it had the bulk and longevity to set up multiple Quiver Dances, Roost to keep it healthy, and Revelation Dance and Hurricane as my attacks. And I used Terra Fighting so it wouldn't be helpless against Dark and Steel types, notably Kingambit. The big problem with this Oricorio, though, is that unlike other forms that can Terra if needed, most games the Pau form has to Terra, just because Psychic Flying coverage is so awful. It's still a Quiver Dance user, and you can sweep with it, but it's definitely the worst. Moving on, at number 11 we have Masquerain. Like Oricorio Pa'u, Masquerain has a disappointing type combination, Bug and Flying. Once again, both are resisted by Steel. It's also 4 times weak to Stealth Rock, which is pretty terrible. Now, many Pokemon on this list are 2 times or 4 times weak to Stealth Rock, and this damage makes it a lot harder to sweep. That being said, I don't consider it a huge factor in the ranking since team members can provide solid hazard removal when needed, and many of these sets are okay running heavy-duty boots, so I won't be going on and on about Stealth Rock for everything on this list. As far as stats go, Masquerain has similar stats to Oricorio. Noticeably lower speed at base 80, slightly higher special attack at base 100, and its bulk is similar but slightly worse. And like Oricorio Pa'u, I put it on a rain team so it could make use of Hurricane. I did use a slightly different set though. Masquerain doesn't have reliable recovery like Oricorio, so I used Quiver Dance, Hurricane, Substitute, and Surf as my last attack with Terra Water, and Leftovers so I could set more substitutes. Despite their many similarities, I gave Masquerain the edge here for 2 reasons. 1, its ability Intimidate. While Masquerain has worse physical bulk, Intimidate is extremely useful for giving it setup opportunities. This allowed me to run a max speed, max special attack set on Masquerain instead of the defensive set I was forced to run on Oricorio. Masquerain is just fast enough to outspeed Dragapult after a Quiver Dance, which is a great speed tier to hit. Oricorio's ability, Dancer, which copies all dancing moves without using a turn, definitely isn't horrible, but it's not nearly as consistent or useful as Intimidate. The second reason I gave Masquerain the edge is coverage. Masquerain has access to Surf, which is very helpful especially with Terra Water and Rain, but it also has access to Giga Drain, Ice Beam, and Shadow Ball. Thanks to this coverage, Masquerain is threatening in a way that Oricorio Pa'u isn't. Still, Masquerain's poor bulk, mediocre special attack, and lack of a useful secondary typing leaves it near the bottom of this list. It's better than Oricorio Pa'u, but just barely. Now into the top 10, we have Oricorio Sensu. This Pokemon has nearly all the same traits as Oricorio Pa'u, just being a ghost type instead of a psychic type. I even went with nearly the exact same set, defensive leftovers with Quiver Dance, Roost, Revelation Dance, and Air Slash instead of Hurricane, since I didn't have Rain. The team is a ghost spam hyper offense, the idea being that Oricorio can eliminate dark-type threats like Kingambit and Hisuian Samurott with Terra-fighting Revelation Dance, and clear the way for Dragon Dance Dragapult and Nasty Plot Gholdengo to go crazy. Ghost is a much better offensive typing than Psychic, at least on paper, with Dark being the only resistance and Normal the only immunity. Pair that with Terra-fighting Revelation Dance, it seems perfect, until you realize why Ghost types are so good. Ghost moves are only super effective against Ghost and Psychic. The real strength of Ghost moves is being neutral against most types. This is great when the Ghost attacks are coming from strong Pokemon, like Dragapult, Gholdengo, and Ceruledge, but on a Pokemon as weak as Oricorio, you really want a type that's going to be super effective some of the time, rather than neutral almost all of the time. The utility of spin blocking is nice, as is the immunity to Dragonite Extreme Speed, but given Oricorio's poor stats, the idea of a Quiver Dance Ghost spamming Ghost moves and destroying everything just isn't realistic at all. Even Psychic types like Galarian Slowking can easily switch in and use Toxic or Thunder Wave, only taking about half from a +1 Revelation Dance. I personally think Oricorio Sensu is the best looking Oricorio form. I really love its design, but I didn't love its ladder performance at all. This Oricorio Sensu in particular absolutely loves getting critical hit. I lost 7 games that I likely would have swept with Oricorio due to being critical hit in the first 4 turns of setting up. This Oricorio cost me about 2 hours and nearly 300 elo just to get to these 2 games for background footage of it performing well. I've truly never had such difficulty getting background replays, and I had to resist the temptation to put it in last place just for the pain it caused me. Anyway though, let's move on to number 9, Oricorio Baile, the fire form. Remember when I said that a Pokemon this week really wants a type that gets super effective hits, not just a lot of neutral hits? Well, that's what Oricorio Baile is. I used the exact same set as Oricorio Sensu, defensive leftovers with Quiver Dance, Roost, Revelation Dance, Air Slash, and Terra Fighting, and I put it on a Sun team to power up its Fire-type Revelation Dances. I considered running heavy-duty boots, but I figured that Hatterene and Great Tusk provided sufficient hazard control that I could use leftovers once again. It still has disappointing stats, and it's still not an amazing sweeper, but it's definitely better than the Sensu form. Being able to hit most of the steel types in the tier super effectively is nice when paired with flying coverage. It's not perfect coverage by any means, you still get hardwalled by Heatran and Garganacl, but that's where Terra Fighting Revelation Dance can help you out. I'm not going to waste your time repeating more and more about Oricorio, you know the deal by now, but basically, it's just like the Sensu form, but Fire Stab is more threatening on a sweeper with these stats. Number 8 is not another Oricorio form, it's Venomoth. Venomoth, like Oricorio, Pau, and Masquerain, continues the trend of having typing that sucks against Steel. It's a bug and poison type. Fortunately for Venomoth, like Oricorio, it has reliable recovery. Despite losing Roost, Venomoth still has access to Morning Sun to heal. Unfortunately for Venomoth, it also continues the trend of having terrible stats, slightly worse than Oricorio in every way. It has base 90 in both speed and special attack, a base 70 HP, a terrible base 60 defense, and a mediocre base 75 special defense. Despite being worse than Oricorio in many ways, there are 2 big reasons that Venomoth is ranked higher than 3 of the Oricorio forms. The first is its ability. Venomoth has Tinted Lens, one of the best abilities in the game. It makes hits that are not very effective double in damage, so Bug Buzz will hit a steel type like Scizor for neutral damage instead of not very effective damage, and 4 times resistances like Goldengo will only resist it 2 times. For a bug type with so many common resistances to its stab moves, this is a huge win. The second reason I put Venomoth so high is that it's a poison type. Toxic is one of the main ways to shut down Quiver Dance sweepers, especially weak ones that need to set up many Quiver Dances to do significant damage. I lost many games because people just switched in a Galarian Slowking or a Toxapex and poisoned my Oricorio. You can run Substitute to get around this, but then you give up on either a coverage move or reliable healing, and that has other significant costs. Venomoth being a natural poison type is amazing, and it makes it way harder to shut down. You can also pair it with Terra Ground or Terra Electric to be immune to Thunder Wave as well, giving Venomoth ways to escape the 2 most common status conditions used to shut down Quiver Dance sweepers. To make up for Venomoth's horrible defenses, I put it on a grassy terrain hyper offense team with a grassy seed, invested max defense and HP. I used Quiver Dance, Morning Sun, Bug Buzz, and as my last move, Psychic Noise to help Venomoth get past unaware walls. And I went with Terra Ground to avoid Thunder Wave. Terra Blast Ground may be better than Psychic Noise here, but I wanted to try out this new option Venomoth was given. It was a surprisingly consistent and threatening sweeper, but still not powerful enough to be a real, viable Pokemon in top-level play. Venomoth is a super cool Pokemon, and it's one of my personal favorites. Its unique typing and amazing ability allow it to be number 8 despite having some of the worst stats on this entire list, but ultimately, those terrible stats are just too much to overcome, and I can't put Venomoth any higher. Now in number 7, the last Oricorio form, Oricorio Pom-Pom, the electric type. It functions much like the other Oricorio forms, and once again I went with a defensive leftovers set, Quiver Dance, Roost, Air Slash, and Revelation Dance with Terra Fighting. A big part of why it's ranked so high is that it's immune to Thunder Wave. Venomoth's immunity to Toxic is great, and so is Oricorio Pom-Pom's immunity to Paralysis. Toxic is definitely a more important immunity, but we also need to consider that Oricorio has noticeably better stats than Venomoth. Flying Electric is also just good defensively in general. It has many useful resists like Grass, Fighting, Ground, Flying, Steel, and Bug, and it's only weak to Ice and Rock. Notably, resisting priority like Bullet Punch and Grassy Glide is great. There's a reason Zapdos is such a good defensive Pokemon. It's also solid offensively. There are Pokemon it can't get past easily like Raging Bolts, Tinglu, and Iron Treads, but Terra Fighting Revelation Dance can help with this. The rest of this team is also an electric spam, with Pokemon like Raging Bolt and Rotom Wash designed to wear down these problematic ground types or take advantage of their absence if Oricorio decides to use Terra and get rid of them. The Pom-Pom form is similar to the Bylay form in how offensively threatening it is, but defensively the electric flying typing is noticeably better. It still struggles with disappointing stats like all the other Oricorio, there's a reason it's only number 7 on this list, but it's definitely the best of all Oricorio forms. Okay, we're halfway through. If you're enjoying the video so far, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. It helps out a lot. Alright, next up at number 6, we have Ribombee. I'm very surprised to be ranking Ribombee this high. Like everything else on this list, it has a pretty horrible offensive typing, Bug and Fairy. This means it gets shut down by both Poison and Steel types, which I consider the top 2 defensive types. Ribombee also has the worst defenses of all fully evolved Pokemon with Quiver Dance, with base 60 HP and base 60 defense. 70 special defense isn't anything amazing either, and its base 95 special attack is alright, but nothing to write home about. The one good stat it has is speed at base 124. And the good thing about having a speed stat this high is that I was able to throw all my EVs into HP and defense and still be fast enough to outspeed Dragapult after one Quiver Dance. The reason Ribombee is ranked this high is its move pool, most importantly having access to Stored Power. Stored Power is a special Psychic type attack that's 20 base power, but it gains 20 power for each stat boost you have. So after one Quiver Dance, it's 80 base power, or 100 if you include the Grassy Seed I have here, then 160 after 2 Quiver Dances, 220 after 3 Quiver Dances, and so on. This snowballs out of control very quickly. After a few Quiver Dances, even defensive Steel types are getting one-hit KO'd. Ribombee is the only Pokemon that gets Quiver Dance and Stored Power, and thank God for that. This thing is a menace. Ribombee doesn't have a reliable way to heal like Morning Sun or Roost, but it does have Draining Kiss. Since the only type immune to Stored Power is Dark, which is weak to Fairy, Stored Power plus Draining Kiss is a devastating offensive combo. With Substitute as my last move to avoid status, this Ribombee is super difficult to stop. Now, it does take a lot of support. Setting up Quiver Dances with a Pokemon as frail as this required both Grassy Seed, Terrain, and Aurora Veil support. But if you give it this support, a lot of teams, even strong, solid teams, just get destroyed by Ribombee. Still, counterplay like Haze or phasing like Roar and Whirlwind completely shuts this strategy down. It's not a foolproof sweeper by any means, but it's certainly the most threatening I've reviewed so far. Now we're into the top 5. First up at number 5 is Vivillon. As a bug and flying type, Vivillon has the typical can't touch Steel types curse that affects so many members on this list. At least, so it seems. Its stats are probably the worst of this entire list, with mediocre base 89 speed, 90 special attack, and a decent base 80 HP, but horrible base 50 in both defense and special defense. It also has no form of reliable recovery, no Roost or Morning Sun. But like all other Pokemon that have made it this far on the list, despite poor typing and stats, Vivillon has some tricks up its sleeve. The first is its ability Compound Eyes. This boosts the accuracy of all moves by 1.3 times. Normally, flying types struggle with not having any good stab moves. Hurricane is a fantastic 110 base power, but the 70% accuracy often makes it not worth using. For Vivillon, though, Hurricane is 91% accurate. This is a major buff. But this alone wouldn't get Vivillon to this point in the list. It also has access to Iron Defense. Nothing else on this list has a good way of boosting its defense. This is really massive. Quiver Dance boosts special defense, speed, and attack, and Iron Defense boosts physical defense. Together, this makes Vivillon completely untouchable unless it gets critical hit or statused. I can't do anything about the critical hit, but to help with status and getting worn down as it sets up, I used Rest with a Chesto Berry so Vivillon can heal all damage and status conditions entirely for free at least once. I also put it on an Aurora Veil team so it would have the extra bulk needed while it sets up the first few Quiver Dances in Iron Defense. With its horrible defensive stats, it needs a lot of defense boost until it's truly formidable. Running Quiver Dance, Iron Defense, and Rest leaves only one slot for an attack, so I went with Terra Flying Hurricane. Most Quiver Dance sweepers would never be okay with just having one attacking move, but there are no immunities to flying, and Hurricane is such a powerful move that it's acceptable for Vivillon. Its ability to set up and just KO everything is similar to Ribombee, but unlike Ribombee, it's strong right away. Its Hurricanes can pack a punch after 1 or even 0 Quiver Dances, making it much less vulnerable to Haze or phasing moves like Roar and Whirlwind. Now, it still does have issues. With only Hurricane as an attack, it's not going to get past a Raging Bolt using Calm Mind alongside it, or a Kingambit Swords Dancing. But if you structure your team right to pressure and damage these Pokemon before Vivillon enters the field, it can go crazy. I also want to briefly shout out that in some tiers, Vivillon is considered near top tier due to Quiver Dance, Hurricane, Substitute, and Sleep Powder sets. Sleep is banned in OU, which is why I didn't go with that set, but in other formats, Vivillon is truly a monster with that 97.5% accurate Sleep Powder. Now for number 4, we have Lilligant. It's a mono grass type, which isn't great, but for a Pokemon so commonly pushed to the depths of lower tiers, Lilligant has surprisingly good stats, with base 110 special attack, the highest on the list this far, base 90 speed, which is not bad either. Its bulk is similar to what we've seen on the rest of this list though, with 70 HP and 75 in both defenses. I decided to put Lilligant on a Sun team since it has the ability Chlorophyll, which doubles its speed in Sun. Lilligant is so fast in Sun that even with a modest nature, it outspeeds Booster Energy Iron Valiant. It also gets Weather Ball, giving it the devastating Fire Grass coverage. I went with an offensive Life Orb set, using Quiver Dance, Solar Beam, Weather Ball, and Giga Drain. Unlike the sweepers we've looked at so far that are meant to use Quiver Dance many times, this Lilligant is only supposed to use it once and then start attacking, making use of the Sun before it's gone. Depending on the opponent's team, you may be able to continue the sweep once Sun is gone with Giga Drain. Growth may be better for this set to get a stronger special attack boost, but I still think this is Lilligant's best showing for Quiver Dance. Alternatively, I could see a set with Quiver Dance, Synthesis, Giga Drain, and Terra Blast working well. I was surprised and impressed by how powerful Lilligant is. It has the speed and immediate power to encourage switches, giving it a turn to Quiver Dance, and with a +1 Life Orb Terra Fire Weather Ball or a +1 Life Orb Solar Beam, it gets a lot of one-hit KOs. It also just has enough power without setup that it doesn't need to use Quiver Dance like everything else on this list does. It can just attack and be an effective Chlorophyll sweeper and Quiver Dance if the opportunity presents itself. I definitely understand why people prefer Venusaur for this role, but I could legitimately see Lilligant having a place on some Sun teams. It's less bulky, but it's faster and stronger than Venusaur. Lilligant certainly isn't as effective at full team sweeping as some of the other members on this list, but it gets major points for consistency. Alright, now we're into the top 3. I really didn't see this next one coming, but as I tested, I was super impressed with its performance. Number 3 is Bellossom. Like Lilligant, Bellossom is a mono grass type. It has the worst speed stat that we've seen so far at base 50. To give you an idea of how slow that is, if uninvested, a +6 speed Bellossom still gets outsped by Booster Energy Iron Valiant. Fortunately, it gets Chlorophyll, so I was able to put it on a Sun team to give it a passable speed tier and help it start setting up. Its other stats are a lot better though, with 75 base HP, 95 base defense, and 100 special defense. It's the bulkiest Pokemon on the list so far. Its base 90 special attack is also decent, but of course nothing crazy. The reason Bellossom got this far is that it has not just the broken move Quiver Dance, but also the broken move Strength Sap. Strength Sap is the best healing move in the game. It heals HP equal to the target's attack stat and lowers the target's attack by 1 stage. This is an insane combo with Quiver Dance. With Bellossom's solid natural bulk and Quiver Dance, attacking it on the special side is mostly useless, but if you try to attack it on the physical side, you just get your attack drained, weakened, and used to heal Bellossom. For many teams, it's an impossible combo to deal with. In addition to Quiver Dance and Strength Sap, I used Giga Drain and Terra Blast Fire. I could also see a set with Giga Drain and Moonblast working, and Terra Poison instead of Terra Fire. This is because Terra Poison completely shuts down Toxic, which is the main weakness of this set. Bellossom is really difficult to break through with attacks thanks to Quiver Dance and Strength Sap, but it's not super powerful, and almost everything with Toxic can live a hit and put a devastating timer onto Bellossom. Thunder Wave is pretty rough as well, due to Bellossom's poor speed. If you get paralyzed, basically any fast Pokemon can outspeed you even if you're at +6 speed. Phasing like Roar, Dragon Tail, or Whirlwind, and Haze also shut it down completely. You definitely need to build a team that can pressure bulkier builds if you're using Bellossom, as it will perform best against more offensive teams without moves like Haze, Toxic, and Whirlwind. But if you support it well, this thing is an absolute monster and a blast to use. Of all Pokemon so far on this list, Bellossom was the easiest to sweep with. Now into the top 2. At number 2, we have Frostmoth. This is the first Pokemon on this list that has a respected place in the OU tier currently. Frostmoth is a bug and ice type, so the can't touch steel type trend continues. For the most part, Frostmoth's stats are on par with the rest of the Pokemon on this list, with the exception of its very impressive base 125 special attack. It has a decent base 90 special defense and a mediocre base 70 HP with a poor base 60 defense and base 65 speed. There are several factors that make Frostmoth ranked so high. The first is its ability Ice Scales, which is one of the best abilities in the game. This doubles Frostmoth's special defense, making it significantly bulkier than Ting Lu. If Ice Scales boosted Frostmoth's defense instead of special defense, it might have gotten banned to Ubers. For a Quiver Dance Pokemon, a defense-boosting move or ability is always greatly appreciated, as we saw with Iron Defense Vivillon, and a similar idea with Strength Sap Bellossom. Still, Ice Scales allows Frostmoth to tank super effective hits on the special side like it's nothing, which comes in very handy when setting up. You can basically set up on any special attacker. The second thing that makes Frostmoth so good is that it's an Ice type. Ice is a great offensive type, resisted only by water, steel, fire, and ice, but since ice types are so rare, basically only water, steel, and fire are significant. Ice Beam hits a lot of Pokemon for super effective or neutral damage, and paired with Frostmoth's base 125 special attack, this thing hits really hard. And the types resisted by ice can be covered by Terra Blast Ground or Electric. Almost all Frostmoth will run Quiver Dance, Ice Beam, and Terra Blast. I chose Substitute as my last move. I consider this the best final slot, but Giga Drain and Bug Buzz are decent options as well. Frostmoth is very reliant upon Terra, but it's such a strong Terra abuser that it justifies being a Terra hog. The combination of a good special attack stat, Quiver Dance, and Ice Beam plus Terra Blast, Electric, or Ground is too much for many teams to handle. Due to Frostmoth's instantly impressive power, it's also not too vulnerable to phasing or haze. It can hit all the Pokemon that commonly have these moves very hard after just one Quiver Dance. It's particularly threatening on Aurora Veil, not only because Aurora Veil helps all sweepers with the extra bulk it provides, but the snow set by Alolan Ninetales also gives Frostmoth a 1.5 times defense boost, stacking to make Frostmoth 3 times bulkier on the physical side. Frostmoth is undoubtedly the most impressive and consistent sweeper on this list so far, but it's far from the best. The best you probably could have guessed. Number 1, the best Quiver Dance user is Volcarona. It was banned to Ubers this generation, so I'll have to remember how it performed when it was in OU, but I don't have to rack my brain. It was pretty memorable. Unlike nearly everything else on this list, Volcarona has no trouble hitting steel types, since it's a bug and fire type. It also has an insane base 135 special attack, a very solid base 100 speed, second only to Rabombi, a pretty great 105 base special defense, and a solid base 85 HP. Its only disappointing stat is base 65 defense. On top of amazing stats, Volcarona has a pretty great move pool. In addition to Quiver Dance, it has reliable healing through Morning Sun, great stab options like Fiery Dance, Flamethrower, and of course Bug Buzz, Will-O-Wisp to cripple attackers that try to take advantage of its poor physical defense, and Giga Drain to hit water types and heal itself. It also has 2 great abilities, Flame Body and Swarm. Flame Body gives Volcarona solid defensive utility throughout the game, and gives it a chance to burn physical attackers that try to take advantage of its poor physical defense, often turning them into setup fodder. Swarm can be paired with Substitute to boost Volcarona's bug-type moves by 1.5 times at low health, and this isn't just treated like another stat boost. So if Volcarona has 2 Quiver Dances up and Swarm is active, Bug Buzz will be 3 times stronger than normal, not 2.5 times. There are only 2 things that have kept Volcarona from getting banned in so many past generations of OU. The first is Stealth Rock. Volcarona doesn't really mind running heavy-duty boots, but if it wants to run Leftovers or Life Orb, it can simply be paired with solid hazard control Pokemon like Great Tusk, Hatterene, and or Cinderace. The second thing that kept Volcarona down is that it has no great way to hit fire types. Pokemon like Cinderace, Ceruledge, and Heatran can shut Volcarona down. That is, if it didn't have access to Terra. Volcarona would run Hidden Power Ground in previous generations to hit fire types, but Terra Blast Ground is twice as powerful when you factor in the same type attack boost. Volcarona would also sometimes run Terra Blast Dragon to resist fire and use them as setup fodder and destroy dragon types. Other times it would run Terra Grass to resist water and boost the power of Giga Drain. There were nearly infinite strong Volcarona sets. It was one of the best Terra abusers in the tier until it got banned. Volcarona is the undisputed king of Quiver Dance. Well, that's my list. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of my placements, or if you think there's a stronger set that I should have showcased instead of the ones I picked. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. I'll see you guys next time.